Hi, good morning. Thank you to the 13 of you who have showed up. It's better than one. My name is Vimal, and I'm going to talk to you about will AI truly, really transform the customer experience? And I approached it from an in-flight perspective because that's where we are. We're sort of in the in-flight environment. After this, we do have a panel where we talk about the customer journey, which includes the airport, on-ground, post-flight, and so on. So for this presentation, just to set the expectations, we're really looking at inside the metal tube and how, or if, AI is going to transform the passenger experience. Now, before I begin, 3 questions for the 13 of you over here. How many of you use AI in some form every day? Just a quick show of hands. Every day, yeah? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 out of 13. That's a pretty good number. How many of you, aside from the 4, are comfortable using presumably Gen AI, because that's what we get to use? So how many of you are comfortable doing that? Great. 2. So half of the number of you who use it every day are comfortable using it. I have a third question, and Max, you're not allowed to answer this. So the third question is, well, actually, before I come to the third question, so the good news, I've got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that there's a bunch of us, and I'm guessing most of us fall into either the baby boomers or the Gen X category, looking at all your faces, maybe millennial. I apologize. But the bad news is that a lot of people around the world, including within our organizations, are equally uncomfortable using AI, right? The good news is that it's actually not very difficult, and today I'm going to be able to share with you at least one framework and some ideas as to how you might want to approach AI in your business. All right, so this was my third question. You've all heard of Gen AI. Has anybody here not heard of Gen AI? Generative AI. Okay, so everybody's heard of Gen AI. How fast do you think Gen AI 10x's improves 10 times? How fast do you think it takes? Do you think it takes 3 years? 2 years? Or 1 year? I want you to think about this. I don't know if you know the answer. Max, you probably do. But the rest of us might be thinking it's somewhere around 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. And I'll come to the answer right at the end. I'll give you the answer at the end. Before I get started, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Commercial Excellence Partners. That's a company I founded in November 2022 with a partner. We are an expert network of commercial practitioners. We help leaders in large organizations enact strategy that enables you to beat the competition and to improve commercial performance sustainably. We operate between the fancy slides of the management consultants and the theories of all the educators, and we operate in between, where we help you actually put theory into practice and put fancy slides into practice. We deal with topics like leadership, sales, marketing, innovation, transformation, culture. These are the areas that we work with our clients. Since November 22, we've worked on 82 different projects across 8 countries and 8 industries. Aviation and travel just happens to be one of them. Now, for myself personally, for those of you who know me, I've been in the industry since 1997. I worked with Singapore Airlines, with Jet Airways, and I've consulted with about a dozen other airlines on various issues in the commercial domain and in the in-flight services and operations domain. So that's my claim to fame. Now let's get into the topic. I'm not going to go deep, certainly not technical, mainly because I'm not a technical guy. I'm the business guy that bridges your business needs with technology. We are now into the 7th decade of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is not new. It's been around since the 50s. And I'm not going to deep dive into that, but it began with the idea of creating intelligence that would be or would come as close as possible to human intelligence. Very quickly, that became machine learning, vast amounts of data that humans couldn't really compute at scale, getting machines to compute that data. And then it became a deep dive into that kind of data. And of course, most recently in October or November 2022, that's when we heard about Gen AI through ChatGPT, OpenAI. That's what's come to market. Now, an interesting statistic for all of you. I said 4 out of 13 was a big number. In the world today, it is said that less than 2% of people have ever used Gen AI. 2% of the world's population. And 0.004% of the world's population use Gen AI every single day. So for the 2 of you or for the 4 of you who use it every single day, you're part of the 0.004% of the world's population. There are essentially 3 foundations to AI. There's the model architecture, which is all about messy circuitry and, well, not messy, complex circuits, complex networks and plans. There's computational power, which is a very serious issue in sustainability. And last but not least, data. And data is the thing that you've heard about if you've been here for the last couple of days. A lot of people have been talking, when they talk about AI, data is the first thing that comes to mind. Now, it's important that whilst we are real and realistic, and whilst we dream about the potential of AI, particularly in flight, I prefer to sort of operate somewhere in between. And so today, my objective is not to tell you, it's quite funny, when the organizers of the show marketed my speech today, they called me a futurist. I've never been called a futurist. I do not like that term, but thank you for doing that. I prefer to think of myself as a possibilist, right? A possibilist. A possibilist is somebody who looks at what's happening and thinks about whether that's possible to do and possible to scale. So I want you to join me on this journey as I go on this possibilist adventure today for the next 15 or 20 minutes to talk to you about applying AI in a sort of a realistic manner, keeping in mind the potential that it holds for us in the aviation industry. So if I were to ask you, what's the in-flight experience today? If you read online, if you read blogs, if you read the media, there are 3 things that stand out about the in-flight experience today. The first thing is generally standard services. I think you'd be very hard-pressed to find even one airline that is, that operates out of the norm, that's just an outlier in any way, really, right? I mean, in some things, in some little ways, and I'll share some of them with you, but by and large, 99.999% of all airlines in the world generally give you a standardized level of service if you're flying low cost or if you're flying a full service. In fact, I made a joke yesterday with a friend that I think in the next 5 years, maybe this is why you guys call me a futurist. In the next 5 years, economy class in a full service carrier and low cost flying is going to be pretty much the same thing. Right? I don't think you're going to see a real differentiation. So that's the first thing about the current in-flight experience. The second thing that we all hear about in the industry is outdated tech stacks and outdated systems. We know the distribution technology, the in-flight, the passenger servicing technology, the departure control systems, most of them have been there for the last 30, 40, 50 years. So outdated systems is a serious issue for us within the industry. And last but not least, the things that you hear about the most often are the pain points of customers. The meals weren't great. Flights were delayed and we didn't get enough information. Service was terrible. And so on and so forth, right? I want you to bear this in mind because one of the things that we do at CEP, Commercial Excellence Partners, is we work backwards from the customer. So if I'm going to talk to you about the potential and possibilities of AI in flight, I want to begin with the customer, I want to begin with what's out there in the market, and then I want to work backwards. So there is clearly a need for innovation. Your passengers on flights today have their expectations measured and benchmarked by the likes of Amazon, food delivery services, Netflix, and so on and so forth, Google, and now, of course, OpenAI. There have been technological advances, and one of the big and consistent complaints that people have is that airlines are not at the forefront of technology anymore. They're always catching up, right? Airlines are obviously in an extremely competitive space. And so they're always trying to outdo each other, particularly in competitive markets, to do something different that's going to win customers' loyalty. And last but not least, if you take all these three things together, the blunt tools that airlines have are essentially pricing and scale, which is why you see airlines like Indigo growing tremendously in a market like India, but now setting the sights globally. So pricing is a blunt tool. Lower the price, raise the demand. And obviously, differentiated pricing is another tool where, depending on need and time and emergencies, higher pricing, a bit like surge pricing in Uber. And obviously, scale becomes an issue then. How do we scale this up? How do we roll this out across all our markets? Again, there is a need for innovation based on all the pain points that we have in travel today. So I took this as the landscape for constructing my talk to you today. I interviewed about 25 different people across different businesses within aviation. And a couple of those videos you will see later. And I put my design thinking hat on. And don't worry if you can't see all of this. I'm very happy to share the presentation with you. But if I were to put my design thinking hat on, the question I would ask is, how might we use artificial intelligence for passengers and crew in flight so that they, and you can fill in the blanks, because every airline and every supplier would probably have a different set of objectives. So this is the main question I want to answer today. And to do that, I suggest that airlines, research, and suppliers or tech companies need to work together in a collaborative ecosystem. Without this collaboration, airlines are not likely to move forward on their own. Passengers are not likely to benefit. Without the airlines, tech companies are not going to be able to roll their technologies out. And research is vitally, vitally important in order to understand the impact and the potential, particularly when you marry human behavior with what's happening up in the flight. All right, so this is a model. I would be very happy if you take out your phones and you take a photo if you want. But really, I'll be sharing this presentation with you. So if you're thinking about AI and you're wondering, where can we begin? How can we begin in my business unit within the airline? Where should I begin? Here's a model for you to think of, right? Think of it on two axes. One is autonomy and the other one is visibility. And I would argue that you should begin over there, right at the bottom, where it says start here. And that's with the least amount of autonomy that you give to the machine and the least amount of visibility to the passenger. Why? Because that is the lowest risk for you as an organization, right? That means do not start with ChatGPT. Do not start with Gen AI, right? And you'll be surprised, or maybe not, to know that this is what airlines have been doing for at least the last 8 or 9 years with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is not new in the industry. The difference is that you don't see it. And if you, in the industry, don't see it, passengers certainly don't see it. All right. So what are airlines already doing today? Remember, I said that airlines have already been doing this for the last 7, 8, maybe 9 years. You've got Air France that has chosen something called SkyBreathe, which uses AI algorithms to reduce fuel burn and CO2 emissions. You've got Southwest Airlines back in 2016, I think. They introduced social listening. They actually have a sort of like a room. I can't remember the terminology for it, but they've got people from across business units sitting and looking at a dashboard of what the customers are saying about them on social media in public. You've got Alaska Airlines using airspace intelligence, again using machine learning to optimize air traffic flow, to optimize routes and therefore fuel burn and fuel uplift. Malaysia Airlines using GE Digital, again for fuel purposes. And why fuel? right? You've got to ask yourself, why fuel? Because that's probably the second largest expense of any airline after staff, right? You've got Delta using the backdrop and facial recognition terminology, and this is something that you see on the customer end quite frequently now. At least where I live in Dubai, almost everything is done through facial technology. I can go through immigration with facial technology as well. I don't even have to take my passport out, by the way. You've got KLM putting Bluebot out there, where you can use, actually there's Bluebot, and there's also booking a ticket through Facebook Messenger. So that's, again, you leveraging AI algorithms. You've got Skywise, which is an Airbus platform. You've got One World and Elemental Cognition's breakthrough AI travel agent. This is for business travel. You've got, again, I believe this is Airbus, where they're scanning the meal trays that are coming out of the aircraft to see what's being consumed, how much is being left behind. You've got, again, Airbus with this predictive maintenance, health monitoring. And last but not least, you've got Blue Sky. I believe this is from JetBlue. This is a JetBlue system which they implemented back in 2017-18, if memory serves me right. Now, what is the one common theme that you notice from all of these examples? One common theme. Anybody? Okay, in the interest of time, I shall answer my question. They're all on the back end. They're not on the front end. They're not in flight. Nothing is happening in flight. Nothing has happened for the last 8 years in flight. It's happened on ground. It's happened where costs are the highest, inconsistencies are the highest, right? So air traffic flows, fuel management, fuel policy. These are all the areas in which AI has been successfully deployed over the last 8 years. Not so much in flight. So now, we know this is what airlines are doing. We know what the pain points are of travel. Now let's ask ourselves, what do our passengers want? What do you want? We are all frequent flyers, I'm assuming. We've all flown here from our destinations. What do we want in flight? I spent a few days going through lots of data which is available online, as well as proprietary data that I've accumulated over the last 5 years through my client partnerships. There was a company that's now gone out of business. They were doing a lot of social listening, and they listened to something like 250 million conversations on social media. So what, when you are the least bothered about how you complain and when you speak the truth, so to speak, and they analyzed about 250 million conversations. And they realized that there were 4 categories that passengers want in flight. The first one is theater. What do we want as passengers? We want entertainment, and we want hospitality. We want good service. We want a great experience. That is the theater that we want. The second thing that we want, or that we are concerned about, is health and wellness. We want the food to taste good, to be good. We want comfort. We want amenities. We want services. The third thing that we want as passengers is autonomy. Now, if you ask me what do I want, I'm never going to use the word autonomy. But if you think about autonomy in the sense of connectivity, yes. If you think about it as information, what time am I arriving? Where is this flight arriving from? Where is this flight arriving to? Where do I have to go to this airport? What's happening in this city? Information. And last but not least, hopefully retail in autonomy, right? So we want the autonomy to choose for ourselves, to fulfill our desires of what is it that we want from that particular journey. And the fourth category of what we want is what everybody loves to talk about, personalization. Now, I have a very different view of personalization. I actually dislike that word, but I couldn't find in the English language a better word to put this category, so I've used personalization. But for me, personalization really refers to 3 things. Number 1, it's got to be recognition. Right? The big problem for frequent flyers today, on every flight that you take, you are like a brand new passenger. Nobody knows that you've flown 100 times in the last 1 year. You are treated exactly like the guy or the lady next to you who's flying for the first time. Right? So recognition. You want relevance. You want something that's offered to you that is relevant. There is no, if you're a teetotaler, there is no point if the crew comes up to you and says, sir, would you like a glass of champagne? No, I don't drink. Right? Relevance. And the last thing that we want is joy. Is there anybody here who doesn't want joy from travel? Please see me after the talk. Right? We all want joy. We all want happiness. This is what we're looking for. So these are the 4 categories of things that passengers want in flight. Now, if we were to apply AI to transform the customer experience in flight, I argue that these are the 4 categories we need to look for. So let's look at them one by one, shall we? So in theater, unfortunately, the closest thing I could find to AI being applied in flight was JetBlue's blueprint. This was announced, I think, about 4 or 5 weeks ago. And this is barely AI, barely. Right? This is just scratching the surface. And what Blueprint does is it saves your persona, it saves your preferences, and you can sort of continue watching from where you left off. This seems to be the big thing for IFE providers, who are, by the way, on the other side of the hangar over here. Right? But this seems to be the big thing. If you attend all the AI talks, everybody is talking about personalization in terms of, can I stop my movie on this flight and continue watching it from the next flight? I don't know about you, but the last time I wished I could continue my movie on my next flight was never. Right? So, in any case, not to diss anybody, I think this is a good development. I think it's a stepping stone. But this is the best thing that I found as far as AI could be applied to the idea of theater. How about for crew? Now, one of my clients, which is Air India, just introduced crew tablets. And I know what they're planning to do. I know what the roadmap is about. And I know AI is coming to that tablet. You have a number of initiatives by other airlines that have been trying to do all sorts of funky things, but essentially centered around that tablet. Why? Because when you put AI into a tablet to help crew to deliver the service that they want to deliver, that's when you can finally achieve recognition and relevance for that particular passenger. So the tablet becomes the interface where AI helps the crew to deliver what passengers want. And to me, that is a little bit of theater. I would love it if the crew comes up to me and says, Mr. Rai, here's the champagne that you like, that you always have on every flight, right? Okay, so let's look at food. I'm going to play a couple of videos now. I know we are all interested in food. I don't believe I've ever met anybody in my life who hasn't had an opinion about airline food. You either love it or you hate it, right? So there's a couple of videos here, and I want you to watch the videos to see the potential for applying AI, especially if there are any caterers. Hello, caterers, come watch the video. Watch the video to see how this could be applied.
Imagine a world where you can order a 5-star dish from your favorite chef or restaurant anytime, any place. All you need is a smartphone. It's all possible through the latest artificial intelligence-enabled tech found in the most unlikely place, the kitchen. Here at Cloud Chef in Palo Alto, California, CEO Nikhil Abraham and his team are redefining the future of food.
We've built technology that allows a chef to cook their recipe once and using a variety of sensors, codify this recipe and help this recipe be recreated in a completely software automated fashion. This will help you eat recipes from anywhere, be it your favorite restaurant in Paris sitting in San Francisco or your grandmother sitting halfway across the world.
Any pushback from the food industry? Any chefs, worried about the chance of their jobs being taken away?
We haven't seen that sort of a reaction yet. Cooking things in small batches is very, very expensive with only humans in the loop. With humans and chefs in a cobotic manner, all of these become economically viable.
Michelin star chefs are already acquiring a taste for this tech.
And get this warmed up.
Like Chef Srijith Gopinathan, the visionary behind 2 of the Bay Area's top restaurants, Etan and Copra. And one of the first chefs to have his 5-star dishes replicated at Cloud Chef. The high-tech, sensor-driven kitchen guides operators with a step-by-step process, so even the least seasoned chef can recreate a top-tier culinary experience.
We have cameras and infrared sensors and weighing scales and stuff that are looking inside the pan, just like how a chef would do.
This is where all the magic happens, the seasoning, that flavor there. So where are we now? And I see the barcodes.
Every single physical aspect inside our kitchen is tracked on our software using barcodes. At this point, we take it to one of these racks. We scan it in. Once enough of the ingredients that are required for any recipe are done this way, it will tell you to come pick up these trays. As long as you can follow instructions, weigh things out, you're good to work in this.
As long as you can follow instructions, you're a cook. My wife was so happy when I showed her this video. Yeah, I have some trouble heading for me when I go back to Dubai. But essentially what this does is it helps the catering industry in so many ways, right? Caterers struggle with people, caterers struggle with chefs, caterers struggle with ingredients, caterers struggle with fixed capex, with resourcing flights. Airlines struggle to get innovative menus from chefs. And speaking of innovative menus, let's watch the next video.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to deep dive into AI and to see if perhaps it can help our normal home cooks in the kitchen by combining ingredients that might otherwise be tricky to put together.
Yeah, so we're going to take artificial intelligence app, ChatGPT, which has been blowing up across the internet, and we're going to put a series of ingredients into it and see if it can come up with a recipe that might be better than one that we would have come up with.
So rather than relying on a bunch of ingredients that we know are going to work, we're going to leave this up to fate by choosing ingredients out of these glasses.
Pick one from each. A protein, a vegetable, a sauce, and a miscellaneous ingredient.
Protein is minced beef.
Vegetable is lettuce.
Okay, lettuce and beef.
Yeah.
Fish sauce.
And our miscellaneous is dark chocolate.
Oh no! Right, here we go. Beef and dark chocolate. Lettuce cups
with
fish sauce dressing.
So it's using a few other ingredients from the store cupboard as well. Except it's now written you a 7-step method with full weights and measures for a recipe.
Oh, I don't know.
Still a bit odd to me.
Right, let's get ingredients.
The beauty here is as a normal home cook, you've opened up your fridge and cupboards, you found 4 ingredients that you want to use up, you've plugged it in and you've let the software do the rest. It's now quite painful to cook using that information and not apply the chef logic. You've still got a whole onion and a whole pepper to put on yet.
Top with the sliced red bell pepper and onion. Lots of onion.
I was worried when it started to spit out that precise ingredients list and method that we might be out of a job in the future. And despite the fact there is some kickback on AI technology and software and not everyone is comfortable in the way it trawls information and repurposes it, I'm feeling more comfortable now.
You've not tasted it yet.
Okay, now we have to drizzle over the fish sauce dressing and then add your fresh coriander.
Let's see what it actually tastes like.
Cheers.
Yeah.
With that dressing, the flavour combo is actually really good.
I actually really like that. And the raw onion, although there's a lot of it, adds that freshness.
It needs to be there, but in smaller quantities.
I was worried about the chocolate, but the sweet fish sauce actually balances things out. That's not that bad.
Yeah.
All right, in the interest of time, I'm going to skip that video. If you get the presentation, you're welcome to watch it. It's a 15-minute video. I shortened it down to 2.5, but I'm still going to skip it. If I were to tell you, I'm giving you 3 ingredients. Beef, lettuce, fish sauce, 4 ingredients. Beef, lettuce, fish sauce, and chocolate. Yeah. Watch the video, you'll be surprised. You'll be very surprised. It actually tasted good. And this was a recipe that was generated by AI. Now, why am I showing you this video? I'm not showing you to show you how clever we are. I'm doing it to you. I'm showing it to you because you are now going to be able to transform all the boring menus that you get in flight, especially the special meals. I know there is a talk later on special meals. You know, having been on the catering side for many years with airlines, I know how difficult it is to cater menus for special meals. And chances are, if you have a special meal requirement, for example, if you're diabetic and you fly every week, you know what's going to happen? You're going to get the same damn meal every week. Am I right or am I right? You're going to get the same meal every week. And so with this, caterers now have the opportunity to think far beyond the kitchen and come out with menu rotations that make customers happy. That was my only point in showing this video. It is a possibility. It just takes getting it done. Let's move on. Let's move on to autonomy, right? Now remember, autonomy is all about information. It's all about choosing when to do what you would like to do. And you know, typically in flight, you do not get that autonomy. You get to eat the meal when you have to eat the meal. The movie selection is the movie selection, right? So let's think outside the cabin, and let's think of autonomy in terms of the flight map. Now this is something, what I'm going to show you is something that's actually live on a few hundred aircraft, and it's only going to get better and better. My friends at FlightPath 3D have actually developed this, and I've seen some of the roadmap items that they're coming up with, and what you're going to have is a map in flight that is now able to give you the information that you want about the place that you're going to, and in the future, with connectivity, for you to go on to booking.
FlightPath 3D and taking a look at one of the newest features they've got. This is their moving map, core of the company, and the latest thing that we've added now is little information bubbles that keep coming up. And this is throughout the flight, as the map is going, you're getting information where you are, what's around, what's worth looking at. And which is really interesting. This is sourced through a variety of different systems. They've got a lot of different information here. Part of it's your navigation for the flight, so you don't have to click in a separate tab to see the speed and altitude and fun things like that. Part of it is where should I go visit? And the best part is all this tappable. So you can go in, you tap on the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and you start seeing details about the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And better than that, the same sort of details keep bubbling up. You're continuing to get more information about what those sites are. You go back, you got more information about New York, you go back to your map eventually, and it picks right back what's there. There's a Botanical Garden. This is another super interesting thing from the airline perspective. Not only is it information, but hey, look, I can apply for the credits. Airlines, you know, love to do that. It'd be awesome if they sold it this way instead of making the announcements during the flight. It's probably going to end up being both, but you get the idea. There's a lot of options here for both the airlines and good things for the passengers. And it's a really, really nifty way to take the map and put more information on it, make it more accessible for travelers.
In the interest of time, and the sound quality isn't great with all the ambient noise, but basically what it is your in-flight map has now been supercharged to become even better than your Google Maps, because in Google Maps you don't have moving videos. But in your in-flight map, you click on the information bubbles that come up, and you can actually go. And now this is something that in technical terms, all it requires is RAGs, Retrieval Augmented Generation, which is a form of AI. And it's a much, much cheaper form of generative AI. It requires a lot less data to train. It's much easier to deploy on-premise, so you don't even have to have connectivity for this. I could go on and on. You can tell I'm quite passionate about this. And this is going to transform the way you interact with in-flight maps. Did you guys know, interestingly, up to 70 to 80% of people in a flight actually open up the Maps application and spend a considerable amount of time on those maps? Do you know why? It's not just because of information. It's because of MH370. It's because of all these other things that happen. You always want to know where you are. You always want to know what's happening. And this is where it's going to give you that much more trust and that much more sort of the idea that you're in control of the information that you want to receive. Now, this is something which, again, has been deployed at the airports, but there's no reason why it can't be deployed in flight. My favorite professor of marketing in Singapore has written a paper on concierge, AI concierge. You all know what a concierge is, right? The concierge is the guy at the bottom of your building who opens your door and gives you all the information, right, in the hotel. Imagine now you have an AI concierge deployed on your phone through your airline app. It's already deployed at an airport, by the way. And that concierge is now fed and trained with specific information about that airport and the surrounding areas of that airport. And now you can go in and query using natural language, just like you and I are talking. And you can query and you can ask questions. So where can I find vegan food in Terminal 2? These are the restaurants. Can you show me the menu? Here's the menu. Can you reserve a seat for me? Done. This is not pipe dreams. This is not dream. This is, and I mean, since we're in Taste of Travel, this is not pie in the sky stuff, guys. This is happening. There is no reason why this can't happen in flight, particularly with RAG technology. I don't know if some of you have seen this. This is from Qatar Airways.
Hello. I'm Sama, the world's first digital human cabin crew. Join me in the Q-verse where I can answer any questions you have. Welcome aboard.
Same technology that exists today, creating a digital twin of a crew. Same technology that I spoke about, concierge. Feed it in. This lady is going to talk back to you in one of 52 or 22 languages, automatically. Imagine that happening. Oh, I promised I wouldn't use the word imagine. Now, just think if that could be deployed in flight. It is not difficult to do this in the next 6 months to a year. Let's move on. We talked about personalization. We talked about recognition. How many of you here do not have English as your first language? There you go. Watch this.
Hej! Jag har bokningsnummer 20 74 83 02. Jag kommer inte ihåg vilka sittplatser jag har bokat. Kan du kolla?
Definitely, I can help you with that. Can I have your full name, please?
Jag kan definitivt hjälpa dig med det. Kan jag få ditt fullständiga namn?
Jenny Palm.
Thank you, Jenny. I can see here that you're having extra legroom seats, which are 13A and 13B.
Tack. Jag kan se här att ni har platser med extra bildutrymme. Vilka är 13A och 13B?
Okej, vad bra.
Automated translation is our AI assistant that allows us to provide TUI customers the support they need, and the tool translates the phone conversations from English to Swedish, Finnish, and Dutch in real time.
This is live today on the ground. There's no reason why it can't happen in flight as well. Automatic, immediate translations. Do this with your crew through the tablets that you're giving the crew. This is exactly how it's going to happen. Again, this is not something that's 5 or 10 years away. This is something that's easily doable within the next 5 years. Relevance. How many of you watched The Great Hack? This came out a few years ago. This was about Cambridge Analytica and Facebook. Do you remember this? No? Let me refresh your memory. This was a company called Cambridge Analytica that utilized well, actually how it broke was because they boasted online that they have, I think it was 3,000 data points on every single individual in the United States. And based on those 3,000 data points, they knew you better than you knew you. This was possible years ago. It's possible today. In theory, artificial intelligence just needs 10 data points to know you as well as your coworkers know you. They need 20 data points to know you as well as your friends know you. They need about 300 data points to know you as well as your spouse knows you. How many data points do you think it needs to know you better than you know you? Yeah? It's mind-boggling to think about this. And these are not random data points. The reason I'm showing you this slide is I have yet to come across an airline, and this drives me nuts. I've yet to come across an airline that asks you, what do you like? It's 3 questions on a screen, on your phone, through your app. What would you like to eat? What would you like to drink? How do you spend your time in flight? Just keep asking us 3, 5, 10 questions. And at the end of the day, let AI surface the insights from all of those questions, whether that's personalized to you or whether that's randomized and done as a cohort, whatever. But if airlines were to just do this, relevance is what we want. Suddenly, the AI is going to know that every time Vimal travels from Dubai to Europe, he takes the morning flights, he does not eat his breakfast, he only has XYZ, and so on and so forth. All it takes is joining the dots from asking the questions to letting the insights surface. And no, I really don't care about starting my next movie on my next flight. Okay, so this gives, the last bit of my presentation is, I know it sounds a little creepy for the airline or for a service provider to have so many data points on you. And so you have to start thinking about ethical considerations. If you want to use AI to transform the customer experience in flight, you got to start thinking about bias. You got to start thinking about transparency. How much are we humans who are in the airlines able to control the output of the AI? Which is why I said, remember in the beginning, start where there is low autonomy and low visibility, because you are more in control of the output of the AI, right? And then what are your moral obligations as an airline? I know we don't talk about these things in industry conferences, moral obligation, joy, love, but these are things that matter to customers. Your moral obligation as an airline is to look after me safely. Your moral obligation is to give me joy in the flight, is to add value to my time. This is your moral obligation as an airline. Think about this, because this is part of your ethics. There are going to be some speed bumps. Data privacy is a big one. Everybody talks about it, GDPR and all of that. But there are ways for you to get over this. You don't have to personalize. You just need to get enough data about particular segments of passengers and cohorts of passengers. Another big thing which I did mention at the beginning is system integration. So obviously, we've got multiple business units working across different systems, and to tie them all together to deliver a passenger experience uniformly and consistently is not easy within airlines, right? You've got to make sure that whatever data you gather and whatever data you analyze is able to be interoperable across systems. And that's not easy, so you're going to find this as a stumbling block. The third speed bump is compliances. Obviously, there's DGCA compliances, there's civil aviation compliances, there's certification processes, and so on and so forth. But I think the biggest speed bump you're going to have is trust. Trust not just from your passengers, but within your teams, you yourself. You yourself, a lot of us, when I asked you the question in the beginning, do you use AI? Are you comfortable using it? Very few hands went up. And the big reason behind that is trust. Do we trust AI to give us the answers that we want? Do we trust it enough to deploy it within our businesses? Passengers are the same, right? Your crew are the same. How do you trust that the AI is not hallucinating and giving you wrong information? So what are your key takeaways from today? If I can suggest, if you're going to remember 3 or 4 things from today, please remember these few. The first one, remember I asked you this question, how fast does Gen AI 10x? You remember I asked you this? I gave you the option of 3 years, 2 years, or 1 year. What's the answer? Anybody? How fast is Gen AI improving by 10x? The answer is 6 months. So from the time that I started researching for this talk 2 months ago to now, it's already improved. I mean, when I started, it was GPT 4.0. It's now 4.0. It's now multimodal. It understands visuals, audio, and text, right? Let's also understand this. Gen AI attracts a lot of headlines, but predictive AI is going to give you immediate value. And this is what we've seen a lot of airlines are doing today. A lot of the AI that's been deployed is not deployed inside the cabin, it's deployed outside the cabin to make sure fuel economy is more efficient, to make sure passenger flows are efficient, aircraft routes are efficient. That's where a lot of AI is being deployed. The third thing I want you to remember from my discussion today with you is this particular model. If you're not sure where to begin, begin right at the bottom where there is low autonomy and low visibility. But here's the benefits if you keep moving up. So if you keep moving up towards high visibility, you will come up with new business models. Airlines, tech providers, all of you have at least 3 new business models that you can think about. So personalized services, tailoring the ancillaries that you give to your passengers, targeted advertising, which I know we're all going to hate, but it's there, it's coming, right? The second area of new business models is dynamic pricing. This is the holy grail of sales, right? You want to be able to sell the same seat at 20 different price points depending on demand and time and so on, right? So dynamic pricing is something that AI is going to drive. And the third big area of new business models with AI is when you have connectivity on the aircraft. AI does not need connectivity, but when you have it, it's going to supercharge everything else. So the sky is not even going to be the limit after that. I think this is my last slide. I want you to think of AI in 3 ways. I want you to think of AI as your autopilot. So automate the things that you're doing, the repetitive tasks that you're doing. Think of it as your co-pilot or assistant, augmenting your efforts, making you Superman or Superwoman, as it were. And the last one is obviously analysis. So the 3A platform that I would like to deliver to you. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if we've got time for questions. We're sort of over time now. But I'm happy to answer anything. And if you'd like to connect with me or speak with me, I'm going to be hanging around today. Thank you so much for listening.